the team. This composition was definitely their answer for Wizard Cleaves, but they have not gone up against ABC in this matchup in particular, so let's see if Jamie can bring some surprise. Jamie positioned quite forward and aggressive for his team. Alec chilling in the back line, not making a move just yet, as Alec is likely the target, so he wants to be able to retreat away as he is right now to avoid any sort of boost damage Fnaubers has currently active with that incarnation. This is typically a big window of time that the Pumpers want to get cooldowns out of the way. They've managed to at least get the Temporal Shield and Iron Bark from ABC, but that's more than a fair trade on their part. Then they switch targets to Jamie. Good pressure output from the team of the Pumpers, but they didn't net any major cooldowns like an ice block, so I don't think they're going to be able to really take advantage of that push.
I think what the most important thing the Pumpers need to do is they need to be slowing down any drinks from Asgarath, and I think on this map it's very easy for Fnaubers with the Starfall to shut that down. So Asgarath's going to have to be very efficient with his mana in this matchup. Nice little swap here onto Drainer as he gets bursted down a little low, but potentially a little bit of a miscommunication there. It looked like Jamie was trying to take down Drainer. Meantime, Alec was putting out pressure onto Fnaubers, and I don't think that's ideal. I think if they had synced up their damage on just one target there, they could have netted a lot more defensive cooldowns. Yeah,
Fnaubers going to be the main target here, especially before dampening, because he does not have access to Death Strike, no consistent self-healing either, so he will be the most vulnerable target for the team of the Pumpers, and he's being caught out of bear form quite frequently. He can't really afford to be that lazy into dampening, although before maybe he can get away with it and then maximize his damage. Cyclone at low health here onto the mage, Alec, but he did not activate any defense, so that Cyclone is just annoying and not that valuable. Asgarath immediately restabilizing, but here's the advantage that the Pumpers wanted with this map hook point, is that they will have a mana lead over the Druid. Drainer getting swapped too, able to Transcendence back behind the wall, but Alec is ready and waiting there for him to try and dish out some damage. However, unlikely before dampening that they'll find a kill. Way of the Crane gets activated, Drainer jumps into the fight, but gets polymorphed. Good punish by Alec.
Yep, definitely. The main strategy for the Pumpers in this matchup is just to put out as much consistent pressure as possible. We saw it work before. I think this is the exact same matchup we saw when they took down Wildcard Gaming. So eventually they just secure the mana lead, and it's really difficult for the Resto Druid to heal through the amount of spread pressure that an Unholy Death Knight and a Balanced Druid has. When we see Balanced Druids, normally they struggle against teams that have a Rogue and a Mage. So the Assassination Rogue is easily able to shut down the Balanced Druid, forcing him into bear. But the thing is, against these Wizard setups, they're basically able to rain down havoc on the enemy team, consistently put out pressure. They're not really forced into bear very much in this situation. They can continuously build up damage. Now Jamie getting bursted down to 50% health, but he managed to hold on to all his defensives. Now I really feel like what this match is going to come down to is the mana bar of Asgarath, and that is the main objective of the Pumpers, to just make sure they can eventually get that to 0.
I've been wondering what Azerite traits the top Balanced Druids have been running since all of the recent Azerite trait rearrangement and interesting choices on the part of Fnaubers. Definitely want to make sure that you get your hands on a Bonded Souls Azerite trait, as it gives you haste and it gives you significant healing to your team, but he's also combining Power of the Moon, which is basically just increasing the damage of his Moonfire, along with Battlefield Precision, or if you're Horde, Battlefield Focus, which just adds a bit of extra damage. And it's really useful if you're playing a class that has damage over time effects, so something like Moonfire and Sunfire, as it removes stacks quite quickly and can add a lot of damage to you overall. And I think it's a smart build that he's running when playing with a Death Knight, where their main goal is consistent damage, deny drinks in the early game, then later on overwhelm them with consistent sustained damage. Definitely a cool build on his part for sure.
Yeah, the Pumpers, they have a really good strategy in these different compositions in this tournament so far. I've been impressed. The Warrior Death Knight has been able to deal with a lot of the teams, and then anything the Warrior Death Knight struggles with, in particular these Mage Shaman setups. This composition with Fnaubers seems to be a great answer. So far, it seems like things are in favor of the Pumpers in this matchup. Alec looking to try to build up some damage, but he has been struggling. Drainer has very effective healing. His single target healing and his AoE healing is really strong. I'm curious to see what talents he's actually running. If he has a counteract magic, it's going to be particularly strong against Jamie on that Shaman with Flame Shock. It will empower his Renewing Mist, giving him significant healing throughout the match. Nice setup here onto Fnaubers with no Trinket, now no Barkskin or Renewal. That's an opportunity for ABC, but Alec had to use the Icy Veins in order to generate this pressure. But still, Fnaubers will be increasingly vulnerable as the game moves forward. We are now at 1% dampening. Asgarath, he got down pretty low mana early on in the match, but he's been able to maintain so far, still hovering at around 50%. I think the main scary cooldown for the pumpers that they have is going to be Fnaubers with that Incarnation, which has about a minute left on it. Once that ticks down to 0, he'll have that available, and that's going to be their opportunity to push and get really aggressive. I want to see it paired with Drainer with the Way of the Crane. They could potentially force out massive defensive cooldowns from ABC or net themselves a kill.
I like the build that Cervantes is running as well for his Azerite traits, bringing in the Magus of the Dead. Every time he apocalypses, he summons in a little skeletal wizard, and obviously as a melee class fighting 2 ranged ones that are kiting you, summoning in an extra minion that can do damage while you are unable to is a smart decision on his part. Of course, running the Hell Chains, that orange beam that we've seen basically every Death Knight playing with, definitely a mandatory Azerite trait to bring in one of those just for some extra added damage. Plus, when he has his pet on a different target, maybe he can get some cleave onto 2 targets with it. Definitely the strategy for the pumpers is to focus on sustain damage and overwhelm the team deeper into dampening, and so far they have been executing quite effectively on it with already a well-established mana lead. Dampening now at 10%. Then you add in the fact that Drainer has Way of the Crane, increasing his damage quite heavily. They could go for a really big punch, having access to that on top of the sustained pressure that Cervantes and Fnaubers have built for.
Full sheep now on a Drainer. Fnaubers a little bit vulnerable, forced into bear form, trying to tank through a little bit of this damage, including the Frozen Orb. Now Incarnation gets used. This is the opportunity for the pumpers. Drainer's on full diminishing returns for Polymorph, so that is the opportunity for the pumpers to get a little bit aggressive. Lightning Lasso will shut down some of the damage Fnaubers has available, and miraculously, Asgarath's mana has actually been going up as we move forward into dampening. I really didn't expect that. Normally you'd see the pumpers have a massive mana lead. They still do have a little bit of a lead, but he has been doing a great job maintaining his mana so far in the game. Has the Innervate, immediately using that to stabilize his team through that Incarnation. And now the ABC is going to be completely healthy for a little bit longer. Another full Polymorph secured by Alec. Nicely done under Drainer, but Jamie and Alec, they've just been struggling to find the pressure that they need to start getting defensive cooldowns from the pumpers.
Now, if you're a healer in the current meta that is all about mana, you definitely want to check out the Azerite trait, Ephemeral Recovery, where when you go below 20% mana, you will gain 8,843. This is what Drainer is running, and it's very important because later in the game, that can almost give him an extra Way of the Crane when he combines it with Mana T. So he's definitely trying to maximize that usage. And now as a Mistweaver Monk in the current patch, another Azerite trait you should definitely look to pick up is that of Burst of Life. It reduces the cooldown of Life Cocoon by 20 seconds. You then combine that with the Honor Talent Chrysalis that received recent buffs, and you've got a formula for a 55-second cooldown Life Cocoon. You can rotate that quite effectively with cooldowns like Bark Skin on Fnaubers, Anti-Magic Shield on Cervantes, and you can rotate between those two, bouncing back and forth, similar to a Restoration Druid's Iron Bark, so you can have perfect defense to keep yourself alive deep into dampening, and that is what the pumpers are utilizing here in game number 5. Because of their win on the blind pick, this is their strategy for victory in game 5, playing it very straightforward and just focusing on consistency. I really don't see any openings right now for ABC. They're in a complete chokehold from the pumpers, and unless Asgarath can sneak away and find a drink and regenerate mana, it's just an inevitability at this point.
Yep, full Hex secured on Drainer. Fnaubers in a bash, good cross crowd control, but once that bash fades from Fnaubers, he is able to decurse Drainer from that Hex, freeing him up to get some heals out in this matchup. Drainer's been able to maintain his mana quite well in this matchup so far. Alec now looking for a little bit of burst. This is his Icy Veins, but they weren't really able to get too much. Cervantes all over him, once again looking for the consistent pressure. Asgarath's mana still continually going up. I wonder if he's actually sneaking away for drinks. I haven't noticed it so far, but the amount of mana he's been able to maintain, once again sitting down in stealth, looking for a complete reset on his mana at this point. Well done by ABC. There's definitely potential for them to turn around this matchup. We know Death Knights with their Death Strike are going to be a vulnerable target later on in the game when it's not nearly as effective, and Jamie and Alec could definitely look to be capitalizing on that.
Yeah, most certainly they can. Asgarath has managed to reset at least into the fight, keeping his team alive here. You definitely want to avoid the lower bracket. You You want to avoid Method Black, the shark, lurking in the murky waters down below here in Game 5, as the loser of this will go head-to-head with them up next, then have an opportunity to get to the grand finals and claim a first place spot. ABC and the Pumpers both need some top-level finishes to accrue enough points to have any hopes of qualifying to the spring final, so there is a lot on the line to avoid Method Black as long as possible in this game. Dampening ramping up now at 31%, and it will end the match because it reduces your healing, and eventually healing will do nothing. I'm curious to see if we do end up breaking records in this match. These compositions definitely have the capability of doing that. Big push by the Pumpers towards Alec, but Jamie now reverses the pressure with that lightning lasso, gunning down Cervantes. That double beam combination once again bursting Cervantes. They can't afford to lose, but they may lose here and now. Drainer barely saving Cervantes in those final seconds. Close call. ABC showing signs of life. Perfect thunderstorm, perfect crowd control. ABC have to kill Cervantes in this next couple of seconds. Do they have enough crowd control to take him out? A full cyclone secured. Cervantes on the run. It's match point. Jamie tries to close it out. Cervantes denies it for a second, ducking around the corners. Drainer still locked down in crowd control. Cervantes is just terrified at this point. They had the entire game in the bag. They had the entire series in the bag. They don't want it to slip away.
I cannot believe he managed to stay alive. ABC is in complete disbelief, running around the pillar, avoiding the damage, interrupting the follow-up crowd controls. Cervantes pulls off a miracle. Now a swap over onto Askarath, and I'm wondering how much mana Askarath used in that exchange. He's still doing quite well. Another full polymorph on Drainer. Cervantes doesn't really have too much left. He's forced so defensive in this position, and ABC has set this up quite beautifully. Cervantes, with the Death Strike not being nearly as effective, is such a vulnerable target in this matchup, and Drainer on that Mistweaver Monk is going to have to start using his mana, a ton of it, to get out the Enveloping Mist, to actually top off Cervantes, to get in a spot where he can push in and get some setups. Jamie gets gripped into a stun. He responds with the Thunderstorm to get Cervantes off of him, and he's able to kite away into the open. That's where they need Cervantes to be. Alec and Jamie, they have to kite out into the open, force this melee into the center field where they can really tee off on him. Alec has the Icy Veins available as well, so this is a great opportunity for ABC to actually close out this game.
They've had momentum for quite a long time. Innervate, Way of the Crane, good combo. That's a free Way of the Crane for Drainer. Now they have to get work done with it. Jamie's looking to hex it. Fnaubers can dispel it. I actually think Drainer should have let Jamie hex him there. Maybe he's afraid of a lightning lasso cross crowd control. Could definitely be a predictive play on his part. Evan Bull gets stunned, but it was able to connect. Fnaubers and Alec both in trouble. Now looking for a Cyclone, gets denied. Trinkets out to look for another Cyclone, gets counterspelled. Good teamwork by the team of ABC. Despite being at a disadvantage, they're definitely showing that they have prowess deep into dampening. Can ABC break their slump? Can they return to power here? The former BlizzCon champions, they've been just so lackluster in terms of their performance. They've got one opportunity here to avoid Method Black just that little bit longer to get into the grand finals. Maybe they can do it, but they're starting to fall behind. Crowd control secured onto Drainer. Maybe an opportunity, but Jamie is just so low on health. Dampening is so high. Askarath is just struggling to stabilize. Fnaubers cyclones Jamie on the Ironbark, denies its defense, switches targets to Alec, bursts him down, maybe potentially forcing an ice block. Not enough damage. Lightning Lasso gets trinketed. Cervantes knows that they have to play aggressive. They have to find a kill. They've lost that significant mana lead that they had throughout the fight, but maybe with the added damage, it doesn't matter. Perfect timing there by Cervantes, sticking on target, denying a Thunderstorm. Ring of Peace to pin Jamie back in line of sight of Fnaubers. Good teamwork, double leg sweep, perfect execution. The Pumpers finally coordinating together to take out ABC in Game 5.
It looked like they were going to lose that one for quite some time, but you can see even when you do get into some of those late portions and dampening, how strong Way of the Crane can be. That was one of the big things that did allow Cervantes to actually bounce back, and then